Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What do they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? And oh, are you in for a treat today? I have another special guest. Her name is Nancy Woolever. She is certified with her SHRM-SCP, and that's important because she is the Vice President of Certification for Sherm. And I am so excited to have you on the show. Hey, Nancy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bruce. How are you?
I'm good. And I wanted to have you on the show because we have a big conference coming up as we're getting ready for the National SHRM Annual Conference and Expo. It's going to be in New Orleans this year, June the 12th through the 15th. And you're one of the speakers this year. Have you ever been to New Orleans?
Oh, yes, many, many times. I've been with SHRM almost 25 years. And I think the conference has been in New Orleans at least twice before during my tenure. It's a great city.
Okay, so my first SHRM conference was in 2012 in Atlanta, and I have not been to New Orleans, not just for a conference, but I've never been traveled to New Orleans. So I'm really excited to be there.
Wow, you should be, because it's a great city. If you have any extra time, it's very easily walkable. There's lots of places where people gather, which is, I think, going to be important as we're coming out of these last challenging 2 years, and lots of neat places to eat. I can send you some ideas for where to go eat. You have to go and get coffee and beignets at Cafe Du Monde down near Jackson Square. That's a sure thing to do, a true tourist type of an activity.
Okay, now when you say coffee, you're talking my language. Beignet. I'm writing that down right now. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna hit you up on some of those sites to see. Hey, I want to, just for those who, and this is a big HR community business leader audience, but for those who may not know who SHRM is, can you just kind of share a brief highlight of who SHRM is and how you serve your customers?
Sure. SHRM is the world's largest voice of the profession, professional association. We have north of 310,000 members worldwide in about 165 countries. We are committed to being the voice of the profession and to improving workplaces for the betterment of all. So better workplaces, better world. We really provide services, education, all kinds of information to help HR professionals navigate their workplace on a daily basis.
You know, I always like to start off the show about, when I met my guests or when they came into my path, and for you, it was an email exchange, and you helped someone that was in the Dallas area with, she had some questions around her certification, and you helped her, and you were just so responsive. I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. So I'm so excited to talk to you today. Hey, before we talk about what you're going to be talking about as a speaker at the conference, I would love to hear your story, like the Nancy Woolever story. Like, where did you grow up, and how in the world did you get into to SHRM and certification?
Chapter 1, I am born. So I'm a Pennsylvanian. I was born in Reading, Pennsylvania. I moved with my family to Northern Virginia in 1974. I think it was July of 74, when my father worked as an engineer for AT&T, and we moved down here for his job. Went to high school, went to college here, went to graduate school here, had a ton of really interesting jobs. In high school, I was a musician and played keyboards in the jazz band, and the drummer's mother worked at OPM, so she got me my first job at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And then I went on to work at the university where I went to school, George Mason University. I worked at General Motors. I worked in commercial real estate development and management for Rouse and Associates for a couple of years. Then I worked in the placement industry, and that's how I wound up at SHRM. I actually wound up placing myself at SHRM. So I've been there almost 25 years.
That's fantastic. I just have to stop here just for a second. This jazz band, you play the keyboard? Do you still play?
Yeah, it's right over there.
Oh my goodness. So funny, I just a few years ago, I started taking piano lessons. And I have so much an appreciation for people that can play the keyboard, just because I know how hard it is for me.
Yeah, Well, I got to tell you, I'm a lot better at classical music than I am at jazz. And I joined the jazz band just because all my friends were in it, and it was really quite an interesting experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I'm not really that good at they call it taking a ride, like improvisation. I am not good at that. I'm good at improvisation when it comes to work. I'm very good. I'm very resourceful and can pull things together, but not on the keyboard. I prefer classical music.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about the Sherm conference this year.
Sure.
The theme is cause the effect.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about this. And one of the questions I wanted to kind of start the talk off with is, what is cause the effect to you?
Well, interesting question, because actually the work that I do every day for SHRM, I lead the unit that develops and builds and administers the 2 SHRM certification exams. That's like our mission. We are helping folks develop into and earn their SHRM certification so that they can in turn cause an effect that they wish to see in their workplace. So everything that we do, I often tell people that no one as a child, when they're saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? Nobody ever says, I want to be a test developer. But it's really something that is the most fascinating job I've ever had, and it's very important, and it's important and critical to do it right and do it well, so that you maintain the integrity of the certification, so that the letters have something solid standing behind them, that's measured by science and validated by science, and is a reliable measure that says, these people know what they're talking about. So they've mastered all this content. They know how to use what they know and what they know how to do to behave competently at work. That's basically what the SHRM-CP and the SHRM-SCP tell a potential employer or an employer. So to me, cause the effect is everything that we do every day, whether it's an interaction with a candidate who is having a problem, getting it over the finish line, or making the connection between, I have the desire, I know it's accessible to me, but I'm having a struggle figuring out how to study, where to study, what to study, and get it over the finish line. Or if it's an item developer that is struggling with, well, this scenario for this situational judgment item that tests behavior doesn't really ring true to me to the way it is this wouldn't really happen that way in the workplace. And so it's important to work with that item developer to say, okay, we'll edit it so that it does, because we need to be presenting realistic scenarios on the exam that are going to be familiar to most of the candidates around the globe. So to me, cause the effect is every single thing that everybody on the certification team does every day in and day out.
I love this conversation because you're really pulling the curtain back and saying, hey, there's a lot going on behind the scenes,
Yes.
trying to make sure that we're getting this right
Yeah.
for these HR professionals, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's I could talk ad nauseum about test development. It really is fascinating. But I think the most important thing for people to understand is that we diligently work to understand what the practice of HR looks like. But so we conduct a practice analysis every 3 to 5 years. We just completed one in 2021. And so the exam we started testing yesterday. Yes, we started testing yesterday. The test window opened yesterday. Tests the new blueprint. So what that means is we now have 9 behavioral competencies, and I'll be talking a little bit about this when we're in New Orleans. We have 9 behavioral competencies and 1 technical HR expertise competency that covers 14 HR functional areas. So that new blueprint went into effect yesterday, and at the same time, we also had done a lot of research studies, integrated ones, that figured out what's the sweet spot with regard to the number of questions that you should ask, what's the sweet spot for the number of minutes that everybody should be able to complete the exam without needing to rush at the end. So we did all that work over the last couple of years, in addition to conducting and finalizing the global practice analysis, which included HR professionals from all across the globe. So I always like to say, when people ask me about the exam, what there is science behind it. There's a lot of science behind it. And be sure that you are familiar with the SHRM body of applied skills and knowledge, because the test is on the SHRM BASK, not on any one textbook. It is critical that you do study for the exam, and there's a lot of science behind that too. All the learning materials, the learning system, and all of the SHRM study materials are inextricably linked to the SHRM BASK. So it's important that you use the right materials to study too. But lots of science, lots of depth of knowledge, and lots of really great materials out there to help someone prepare and get it over the finish line.
I know there's probably some people listening that are going to be taking the certification this round or even next round, and they're going to get a
Yeah.
lot out of this conversation. You know, when you talk about research, I just finished the book Reset by
Yes.
Donna C. Taylor, which is a fantastic book. Dr. Alonso talks a lot about in there, but they talk about a lot of research. And so when you start talking about that, I was like, man, that is right on. Hey, well, let's talk about you speaking. So I have you listed as speaking on looks like Monday, June the 13th at 10:30 a.m.
Yes,
Do you know, is that right?
that is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And so you're going to be, and your presentation is going to be around certification. Talk a little bit about your presentation and uh, what like, first of all, let me just ask you this. What excites you about speaking?
Well, it's kind of fun. If my boss, Alex Alonso, Dr. Alonso, has time, he will usually join me on the on the stage, and we collaborate together really well. Um, he also has a new book launching at annual conference on taboo talk, how to manage challenging workplaces in challenging conversations in the workplace respectfully. So if he has time, he's going to join me, and we have the most fun part of the presentation is we play this game, and we have people come up and we ask real retired questions, recently administered questions for people. I will tell you, the rules of the game are that you cannot have signed up for the test yet, because the prize is you get a free exam if you participate. So to all the listeners out there, if you're thinking about taking the SHRM exam and you just haven't bitten the bullet yet, if you come and participate in the game, and I think we ask 4 questions, 2 knowledge questions, 2 situational judgment questions. So that's the most fun part, because we help people figure out how to navigate the questions. And usually, we get anywhere between, depending on, like last year was a small audience because there weren't that many people in person. But this year we're over 12,000 so far, and about 80% of them are in person. So it's a pretty large chunk of people that are going to be at the conference so far, and we're still taking registrations for another 7 weeks or so. So that's the most fun part. So it's either a couple hundred, or one time we had like 1,100 people in the room. And so people are like rushing the stage, and I want to be picked, because when they find out that the prize is a free exam, it's like, yeah, they want an opportunity to participate. So that's the most fun part of the presentation. But we give a lot of information about the test itself, and we give a few test taking tips, because there are a few very important test taking tips. And the first one I've already talked about, which is be sure that you're familiar with the SHRM body of applied skills and knowledge, because that's the framework for the test. So, the two coupled together, the SHRM BASK and the SHRM learning system, we know that people that study using both those methods, using both those things, the SHRM BASK and the SHRM learning system, pass at a substantially higher rate than people who don't. So that's the one tip. The second tip is don't forget that this is a knowledge and an experience exam. So the situational judgment items, those are the ones that test the behavior. I think of it in terms of, it's nothing more than or less than you do every single day at work. Something happens, you have to figure out what's going on, and then you have to make a decision. So it sounds a little bit more daunting though, because it's in testing form. but there's no book learning for that. Yes, there you have a knowledge base, so you know what kind of a solution you're looking for, but that's the experience part of the exam. Don't forget that it's a knowledge and an experience exam. And then the third taking tip that I really like to emphasize is try not to get too much inside your own head. Don't
Mm.
psych yourself out. And if you go into it thinking, I am never going to pass this exam, I call it, don't have an Eeyore attitude. I'm never going to pass the exam. If you go into the exam thinking I'm never going to pass the exam, you know what? You're probably not going to pass the exam. But why would you do that to yourself? Instead, I always say, please give yourself credit for everything that you know and that you've learned how to do, and that all the really good decisions you've made and how you've performed competently at work over the expanse of your career. And just don't psych yourself out like that. Don't set yourself up with negative thinking. And then we'll give a couple of different like specific tips about all the myths that are out there about, like, well, the longest answer is always the right one.
Mm.
No. And the corollary, it's funny because you can't have both of them. The longest answer is always the right one. No, wait, the short answer is always the right one. No, there is no magic bullet there or secret sauce. We really work very diligently with our item writers, and we have about it's an all volunteer workforce of SHRM certified people, but we have between around 700 or 800 a year that work on developing the test items, and
Wow.
they're very specifically trained. And we edit them if there's anything tricky in there. We edit out the tricky stuff. We don't write tricky questions. Alex always likes to say run DMC, didn't write the exam, and I never knew that what that was because I don't listen to rap until I looked up the lyrics, and I'm like, okay, now I get it. So no tricky questions. And lots of other test taking tips. So it's a fun session. So
I
come
love
on
that.
down. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. And by the way, I love this test taking tip. Don't be Eeyore.
Don't be
Okay.
sure.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that is
Yeah.
so funny. Well, what is the I'm curious, what is the typical, is there a pass rate, a percentage on the,
Yeah.
so for those listening, so you have both the SHRM CP and the
Uh-huh.
SHRM SCP.
Right.
Is there a percentage pass rate on those?
Yeah. The SHRM CP, which is the certified professional, that's for people it's designed for people who are in tactical roles.
Okay.
So, and then the SCP, the senior certified professional, is really designed for people who are in the senior level roles, and what we mean in strategic level roles. And what I mean by that is it's pretty specific. You have to have at least 3 to 5 years experience already in a strategic level role. And what that means is I call it the boss and everybody else around role. There aren't that many positions at the top. If you are writing policy, setting the strategy, the entire team reports to you, the buck stops with you, you report to the executive team, or you're on the executive team, then that's the exam for you. If you are directing the entire integrated HR enterprise, then the SCP is for you. If that doesn't describe you, everybody else takes the CP. And the reality of it is that only about 23% of the people who take SHRM exams, which is up to between 35 and 37,000 a year now, only 23% of them take the SCP. The rest take the CP.
Okay.
So 77% of the people take the CP, which is, and it's a fabulous, well, they're both fabulous exams. The CP has a slightly higher pass rate, and that it ranges between like 65 and 73%, depending on which testing window. I'm sure we posted them on the website. I don't remember what they were this last window, but see, now the game is entirely new, and I'll talk about that in a second, because it's a shorter exam, but with more time. So effective yesterday. But the SCP it's a much more difficult exam. And what we're hoping is, with the implementation of the new eligibility requirements that I just described, you have to have a minimum of 3 to 5 years already in a strategic role. Or the caveat is you can be a CP who's held the CP for 3 years and who is actively developing into a strategic role through stretch projects. That's the other eligibility requirement to take the SCP. But the SCP has a pass rate between like 45 and 52%. It's a very difficult exam. And what we're hoping is that now that we have clearly defined who's really supposed to be taking this, that it will not be, it's not an aspirational exam. I know a lot of people are like, but I want the SCP. And it's like, that's fine. But the questions are written by people already in the level of role that I described, for people already in the level of role I described. So if you don't, keeping in mind that half the exam is experience, if you don't have that experience, it's not likely that you're gonna pass.
You know, when I was taking the exam years ago, and I have my SHRM-SCP, and I was thinking about one of the things that helped me also was study group.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good. Do you talk about that in your presentation at all, about whether it's a study group or connecting with others or trying to find people that you can walk the journey with?
Yes, I talk a lot about, technically there's a firewall because of the accrediting body between exam development and cert prep. But we have a lot of flexibility with our accrediting body. And so sometimes the lines blur. I mostly talk about when it's important to invoke your network. And in my view, that's really important when you're studying the SHRM BASK for the behavioral competencies, because the behavioral competencies are the ones that are tested in the situational judgment tests, the ones that are the experience-based questions on the exam. And I always advise people that the best way to study for those, since as I mentioned earlier, there's no book learning for that. Those are the experience questions. If you're reading through the proficiency indicators, those are the statements of this is what competent performance looks like in practice. If you're reading through them and you're thinking to yourself, I've never had to use that behavior to make a decision or solve a problem, that's when you go to your network. And I've been telling people this for years, and I've never had anybody come back to me and say, that didn't work, Nancy. So I'm going to tell everybody here too that, and this will probably be a repeat for what I say in the session. If you go to your network and you're just very open and honest, hey, I'm studying for the SHRM exam, and I was advised to do this, and I've never used this behavior to make a decision or solve a problem or make a judgment. Have you? And if they say yes, then you say, well, tell me what happened in that situation, because then that expands your knowledge base. To me, that is a very critical part of having a network or a study group. Most people have joined a study group. Many of them join them either through their class that they take or through their local chapters. Local chapters all have, SHRM chapters all have cert prep, or most of them do. And most of them have study groups. When I took the exam, I joined a study group. I would have been sunk. You know, I had the unit before I got it, my certification, before I joined the unit, though I was in another unit at SHRM. But I would have been sunk without the study group. So yeah, I'm a proponent of study groups.
Yeah, it really helped me too. Now, one of the things that we've been doing at Texas SHRM, which I'm really excited about, is offering a second chance webinar, more of a I believe we had like a 6 or 7 week session where we talked about different things, and to help people who have taken the exam but they didn't pass, and they want to take it again. What are your thoughts around the second chance exams? Do you talk about that at all?
I don't, but I can. I mean, I can certainly toss that in there. There's a lot of landscape to cover. I have done a webinar in the past about how to interpret your score report and use your score report, if you pass, to create your professional development plan. If you don't pass, you can use it to re-engineer your study plan.
Mm.
And so we have that available that people can look at. But we are huge proponents of second chances all across SHRM. And in fact, one of the things that we have in development right now, we're calling it peace of mind insurance. If somebody wants to give it a shot but is apprehensive how it's going to go, they can buy insurance when they sign up for the test. And it's like, if you don't pass, you're automatically signed up the next time. If you pass, your insurance expires. It's just like any other
Sure.
insurance.
It's
So
insurance.
we're working on that now, but
Right.
that's not quite ready for
Yeah.
prime time. But in the meantime, I do think it's important to think about if you're going to take a second bite at the apple, and think about it with a range of like 65 to 73% passing on the, let's look best case scenario. Let's say 73% of the people pass the CP. That means 27% of you didn't pass. So if you want to take a second bite at the apple, and many people do, there are definitely some ways that you can refine your study plan to re-engineer your thinking and the way you approach the exam. I call it to make your second assault on Mount Everest.
Mm.
So it's like, take your bottled oxygen this time. And there are definitely some tips that you can implement to refine your study plan. But we've also tried to set people up to study that same way the first time out. And that's why we've started to, I won't say harp on this idea, but yeah, harp on this idea that you have to become familiar with the SHRM BASK. It will become your best friend. And I always recommend that you can now go online. It's an interactive BASK online. So you can, whenever you click to a section area, it takes you directly to that section. So definitely read the entire document. Many people download a copy or save a soft copy, and then take your highlighters, your highlighter pens. And I always say, first pass through, highlight things that I have no idea what they're talking about. And trust me, even as the VP of certification, I'm like, what do we mean by that? And I have to like dig deeper into it. For the knowledge areas and for the components called the key concepts of the behavioral competencies, those are the things you study in books. The proficiency indicators for the behavioral competencies are the things that are the experience-based ones. So pass number one color highlighter, highlight things you like. I don't know this. I don't do this often. This is not in my wheelhouse. I have no idea what they're talking about. Those are the things that you're going to study deeply. And then a second color is, I've got this cold. I do this all the time. This is definitely in my wheelhouse. Those are the things that I should review, because it's always good to review. And then everything else that is uncolored through with a highlighter, you decide what level of effort you need to invest to study that, either study it deeply or just review it. But you definitely need to know your stuff. That's why I said earlier, do not wing it. Don't think you're going to be able to go in cold and just wing it. You really need to prepare.
I love this. I love all of this. And when you said online, I was just thinking about one of the things I'm grateful for is the SHRM certification app, to where every time I go to get my credits recertified, I just pull up that app and it's so easy.
Yes. Well, the other really cool thing, Bruce, is that if you're a SHRM member and you've used the same single sign-on email address in your SHRM certification portal account as you use for your SHRM membership, and we are converting, heads up, we're converting everybody to that. So just go ahead and help us out and do it right off the bat when you sign up for your exam. If you're a member, please use your single sign-on that you use for your SHRM membership. And the reason that we do that is that the systems are, of course, linked. And so we can automatically upload your credits. So for example, anyone who's coming to SHRM 2022, if you're, it's northward of 27 credits. I don't remember exactly how many credits it is. And if you're a SHRM member, think about it. 2 annual conferences and 2 years of membership and you're recertified, and you didn't have to do a thing because it's your SHRM membership that we upload, and it's a SHRM annual conference. But we upload everything, every event related to SHRM. So any seminar, any specialty credential, the PMQ, any SHRM conference, and your SHRM membership. But the other thing is that people often overlook that, yes, you can earn all 60 recertification credits through education, but you can also earn 30 professional development credits for completing projects at work. So go into the SHRM BASK and look at all of the competencies that are in there. And what a lot of people do is, especially if they go to a conference or they go to a specialty credential or a seminar or something, they'll look at the learning outcomes, which are all linked to competencies in the SHRM BASK. And then they'll pick a project at work and say, this is going to take me at least 120 hours to complete. That's a 30 professional development credit project. So you could go to the annual conference, and let's say you decide to take everything in the strategy track, and then you go back to the office and you're like, okay, here's how we're going to re-engineer X strategy using everything that we learned at the annual conference, and it takes you at least 120 hours. So if you think of a massive project at work, what massive project at work doesn't take you 3 months?
Oh, right.
So you take what you learn, you go back and complete a project, you're a member for a year, 3 credits for membership for the year, 27 for annual conference, and now you did 30 credits. So you're recertifiable. So I'm recertifiable. That's what you need to say to yourself. It's because we really try to remove all the barriers as much as we can from recertifying. So there's the work projects. And then the other thing that folks overlook is all the things in the advance your profession. So like speaking, writing, editing, participating in SHRM research, volunteering, either at the local level, the state level. We even give PDCs for SHRM certified folks who write the exams. So we do like 31 projects across the year to write all the exams, but we have many, many other projects that are volunteer projects. And, you know, I usually earn most of my PDCs to recertify by most of mine are not in the advance your education. They're mostly in advance your profession and advance your workplace.
I love that. I love how you shared that at the end. Like you're just trying to make it easy as possible for you once you get certified to be able to continue to be recertified with all the education opportunities, from, like you said, from volunteering to speaking to attending conference. There's just so many ways. I love that. Hey, let me ask you this one last question before it's time to accelerate. And when people leave your session, like at the end of the day, what are you hoping? What are you hoping to hear from people that come up and talk to you?
I can do this, because that's what I want. That's what I want them to walk away with.
I love that.
I want folks to walk away knowing that you're the individual that has made the decision you've made the commitment to do this for you and your career. And maybe your company is paying for it, but we also know, because we study everything, that mostly HR professionals pay for the certification themselves. So you've made this investment in your career. You know that it's accessible, because we take applications almost year round. We have to shut down for 8 days a year to get the system ready to take applications for the next application window. So we take applications nearly all year round, and we test 6 months out of the year. So we're committed. We've got all these great study materials. We've got a study guide to help you out too. We hold webinars on test taking tips that are free. We are equally committed to your success as you are. So I want folks to walk away knowing that SHRM is committed to helping you be successful on the exam. So whether that means pointing you in the right direction for study materials, pointing you in the direction of a chapter or a state council related study group, pointing you toward resources that you can focus on to remove your anxiety, because a lot of people have test taking anxiety, and I get it. You know, it's been almost 50 years since I've been in high school, and so a lot of people really have not taken a multiple choice exam in a really long time, and
Yeah.
that's a daunting thing for some people. So we have lots of tools available to help you overcome your test anxiety. We have lots of test taking tips that tells you how to navigate the different question types on the exam, the knowledge items with the clearly correct answer, and so the situational judgments that, well, it all depends what's going on in the story, and you really could do any of them, but what does your experience say is the best thing to do? So we have all these tools available, and we are committed to helping you be successful, because we want you to be SHRM certified, because we know what all the research says. The latest research we did with executives, HR executives, says that 92% of HR executives say that it is going to be important for people to hold a SHRM certification in the future. So we need to be committed to your success, and we are committed to helping you be successful.
I love that. You are definitely causing the effect. You know, I tell people all the time when they ask me about the certification, I say, you know, those letters mean something. But going through that process,
Yeah.
that's where you grow in your
Yeah.
career. And it's just the growth is just incredible. I remember when I went through the process, I mean, I just grew so much. And what I found is that the conversations are different, right?
Yes.
Everyday
Yes.
conversations to really make impact. I love this. Hey, if you are, I'm going to put the link for the conference in the show notes.
Okay.
And we want you to, everybody listening, we want you to get registered. And then I want you to sign up for Nancy's session on June 13th at 10:30 a.m. She's going to give you some of these test taking tips. And I know you're going to walk away with, man, feeling more confident than ever. Hey, I want to ask you just a few fun questions before
Okay.
we wrap up here in this time to accelerate. The first question I want to ask, I mentioned earlier about New Orleans. Like, what's your favorite city that you have visited with all the different conferences across the US? Do you have a favorite?
Well, domestically, I love San Francisco. I also love New York. I love New York. But internationally, I really like Edinburgh. I don't know why, I just do. But I also like London, and on the mainland, well, I guess it's not the mainland because it's in Italy. I really liked Florence.
Oh, I've never
So
been. I've never been. I love it. Hey, what are you
yeah.
looking most forward to the week of June the 12th through the 15th? Well, actually, you'll probably be there a little bit earlier, but during that week of the conference, what are you looking forward to most?
I really like being in the certification lounge and going to the certified good times party. We have a couple exclusive like red carpet type events for people who are certified. And yes, folks, we're trying to entice you to become certified because of the fear of missing out of what's inside that certification lounge. But just the everyone that comes in, there's definitely a vibe in the certification lounge. It's sort of like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's mostly or a bunch of introverted people in there, because it's a place to just get away. I myself am an introvert. You wouldn't know about it. And you wouldn't know it by how much I'm talking this morning. But I really like being able to connect with the people one-on-one in the lounge. The party, the Certified Good Times party, it's just a lot of fun. And this year it's at the Mardi Gras Club, and everyone who's certified will get an invitation. So the reality of it is, and here I'll put a plug in for folks that hear this ahead of time and decide to sign up and take the test and pass it before the SHRM conference, you would then get an invitation to come to the party, and you can come in the lounge, and you'd earn your 27 credits toward recertification. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most, is being with the people. And last year was a good experience in Las Vegas, even though there were only 7,000, I think, in person. About half of them were certified, and about a quarter of them came into the lounge. So it was, a couple thousand people that were in and out of the lounge and at the party. And it was a very good to be able to reconnect with people after so much time apart.
I cannot wait for that. I can't wait to see you in the certification lunch. Okay, here's my last question,
Okay.
and I love to ask the question for all my guests, and that is this: Nancy, 10 years older, is
Yeah.
knocking at your door, and you're
Yeah.
going to go answer that door. What's she going to say to you?
No regrets.
Hmm.
Live your life with no regrets. And be true to yourself and do a good job and let the numbers speak for themselves, and don't get wrapped around the axle about it. So yeah, there's
Uh,
a there's a lot that 10 years from now Nancy would say to current Nancy. But yeah, enjoy life. It's important. And make time for the people who mean something to you.
Well, this has been so energizing. I told you the time was just going to fly
I know,
by.
and you
It's
were
been so
right.
much fun. You
Yeah.
definitely live life in the leadership lane. I cannot wait for the conference. For those who listen to this podcast and may or may not be going to the conference, but they want to learn more. Is there a way that they could connect with you?
Sure, just email me.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put your email in the show
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah,
And
and I've got I must give a shameless plug for my fabulous team. I have a fabulous team. There's I think there's only 10 or 11 of us. We actually have a vacancy. So if there's any SHRM certified person that's an HR content expert that wants to come write exam questions, let us know. We're looking for a person, but I have this fabulous team. So even if I don't know the answer, and trust me, I don't have all the answers, I have a fabulous team and I'll connect you with the right person.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I told you it's more than a podcast. I mean, we got a job opening here, people. This is fantastic. Listen, I really appreciate and you coming onto the show and just sharing your wisdom and perspective. And I can't wait to share this with others and see you at the conference.
Yes, I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah.
I'll see you
Okay.
I'll
Well,
see you in a month.
I know, right? I'll see you
Yeah.
soon. Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. Take care.